Go Green Radio, everybody. We're so glad that you could join us. January is Radon Awareness Month, and we have Zan Jones, who is the VP of Sales and Marketing for Radonova, here to talk with us about this very important issue. And we are so excited to have her on. Zan, welcome to Go Green Radio. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jill. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, let's start by talking about why we should all take radon exposure seriously. I mean, what are the human health risks to radon exposure? Kind of help us understand why we should care.
Yes, radon is the number one cause of lung cancer in people who don't smoke, and the number two cause of lung cancer after smoking. And so it's actually a naturally occurring gas that seeps into your home through cracks in the foundation. And as it gets into your home, it becomes trapped. And as we inhale it, it becomes radioactive as it decays, and it damages the DNA of the cells that line our lungs that leads to tumors and lung cancer.
Wow. Okay. You've set the stage. That's a serious issue. Is there
Yes.
anything about children's bodies that make them especially vulnerable? I mean, their little bodies are so precious to all of us. Should parents and teachers and others who are caregivers of children be extra concerned?
Yes, there's many reasons. First of all, as you know, children's bodies are smaller and they have smaller lungs and faster breathing rates, which, as many other indoor air toxins, they can inhale more or a higher dose for the size of their body. But also, they crawl on the floor, they sleep on the floor, they play on the floor, which is the source of entry for radon into our homes. And so they are closer to the source. And probably one of the biggest reasons that children are more vulnerable is that radon causes lung cancer when you're exposed over the long term. It's not something that you get exposed in 2 days and you have lung cancer. It's long-term exposure, like living in a house that has high radon for many years, or going to a school or teaching in a school that has radon and teaching there for many years, or working at a workplace with high radon for many years. And so the earlier you're exposed to radon, the greater your chances are of getting lung cancer at a younger age. And that's why we've sadly seen people in their 20s and 30s, very healthy people, Olympic athletes, um, coming down with lung cancer in their 20s and 30s because they were exposed to radon at a young age. So it does really start the clock ticking on that exposure if you're exposed as a child.
Wow, that
Yes.
makes a lot of sense, but it also, brings me, some trepidation about what we're doing and if we're doing enough. And I know we're going to get into
Yes.
that in a little bit,
Yes.
but what is radon and where
Yes.
is it found? I mean, are there parts of the US that are more prone to it? Tell us a little bit more about the geography and what radon actually is.
Yes, radon is a noble gas. It's on the periodic table. Its atomic number is 86 and it's naturally occurring. And it occurs when the uranium in the soil around our homes and schools and workplaces decays. And it then seeps into our house through cracks in the foundation, floor joints, where pipes in our house, through basement walls, through sump pits. And then as it enters our house, it becomes trapped and where we can then inhale it. And interestingly enough, it really didn't come to the forefront until the 80s. In 1984, there was a gentleman named Stanley Watrous in Pennsylvania. He had moved his family to Boyerstown, Pennsylvania to work at the Limerick nuclear power facility. And he was a facility engineer. And as when they installed the radiation detectors at the plant, they installed those so that people leaving the plant would detect radiation and wouldn't take it out into the community. But Stanley was setting off the radiation detectors as he entered work every morning.
Hmm.
So he was bringing radiation to work, and that puzzled them. So they went to his house. They figured he was bringing it in on his clothing. They tested his house for radon. Now, the actionable limit for radon is 4.0 picocuries per liter. And that's actually named after Marie Curie's 4.0 picocuries per liter. But the EPA moved into Stanley's house, measured for radon, and it was 2,700 picocuries per liter in his home. Yes. So the EPA moved in, their family moved out. They mitigated the home for radon. They tested the neighborhood, and the family moved back in after the mitigation was complete. And as of several years ago, none of them came down with lung cancer. So that just proves that even if you have radon in your home, if you mitigate it, you can bring it down to a safe level and live safely.
That's very good news.
Yes. And then a couple of years after that, in 86, in the 80s, that's when the Surgeon General classified radon as a Class A carcinogen. But the issue or the incident with Mr. Watrous at his home, that's what really brought it to the EPA's attention and to the national forefront in the United States, and which moved into the EPA doing more studies and looking at the soil and looking at radon testing around the country. And you asked about, are there parts of the country that radon is more prevalent?
Right.
And the answer is yes. And it depends on a lot of things. It depends on the soil, it depends on the weather, but it's also based on the people that have tested in those areas. So a radon map was created by the EPA over 30 years ago. So it's even they will admit it's outdated. But the radon map classified areas of the United States into zones 1, 2, and 3, based on how high the radon levels were in those areas. The thing to keep in mind is that those maps are based on tests that were performed. So if
Hmm.
you have areas of the country where there wasn't any testing done, or people don't know about radon and they haven't tested, then those areas are underrepresented on those maps. So radon maps can be artificially low in their representation of what the radon in your area is. For example, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and there's areas in Dallas that know nothing about radon. It could be because of demographics. Certain areas of the country and areas of all of our cities are at a different demographically aren't going to know about radon. They just aren't going to learn about it. It's not going to be on their radar. If you're just trying to keep your lights on, you may not be concerned about indoor air. So these places aren't testing, and so they're not being represented in the radon maps that states do and that the
Hmm.
EPA has done. So what we know is that even in areas with very low radon, according to a radon map,
Uh-huh.
according to a state radon map or to the EPA's radon map, those areas can still have homes 3 and 4 times the actionable limit.
Mm.
So I guess the most important message here is to test your own home, because your home could be high for radon, but your neighbor's home may be low. It varies from home to home within the same neighborhood. And so the important thing is to test your own home. A radon map might be helpful in doing assessments or maybe making some legislative pleas. But as far as you personally knowing if your home has high radon or your school has high radon, test each of them individually.
You know, what you just brought up of people not knowing
Yes,
and the maps maybe not being as accurate as they could be, that in and of itself is a problem. And we have
yes,
seen a history over the course of years of these kinds of pollutants and health risks from the environment impacting folks who, may not be able to afford a test or
yes,
or th don't receive information about it out of no fault of their own. But if there aren't government programs, local, state, federal programs to protect human health from this or whatever the fill in the pollution matter that we're talking about, that's a real problem. And that's something that those of us who advocate for, environmental justice, climate justice, all of these things, it's something we can get behind. And I'm glad you brought that up, Zan, because that's something that I was unaware of, that there is the possibility that some of these radon maps may not be fully fleshed out with the data that we need to protect folks. So I'm
Absolutely.
so glad that you brought that up. Now I've got to ask, because there are only 12 months in the year, why January is Radon Awareness Month. Is there something about cold weather that impacts radon and our potential exposure?
Yes, absolutely. Weather affects radon, that the radon levels that will be in your home. And during the winter months or the cold winter months or the heating season, as some people may call it, kind of October to March, our homes are tightly sealed to keep the heat in. So we stay inside, we close our windows, we keep the heat in, and that when radon seeps into our home during those months, it has less of a chance of escaping where and it stays in our home where we inhale more of it. And we can and it
Hmm.
increases the concentration of the level in our home. And
That makes
also
sense.
radon is it's out in the open. It's you can walk outside and radon is outside and it's from the decay of soil. And so it doesn't harm us when it's outside because it's not contained inside of a structure or a home, but ice and snow can packs down the soil. And so it has less of a chance of escaping to the atmosphere and it finds ways of escaping into our house, maybe through a foundation or a crack. And
Hmm.
probably the biggest reason that we see high radon levels in the winter, and or one of the main reasons is the chimney effect, or what we call the stack effect. And when the indoor temperature is higher and the outdoor temperature is lower, as you know, heat rises. And so it creates a chimney effect where as the heat rises, it actually pulls the radon up from the ground up through our house and up into our house. And that's what causes the higher radon in our home during the cold winter months.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, this isn't, radon in our homes or schools or workplaces isn't just a function of older construction. Like it's an old building, you might suspect that there's radon. This could happen in new construction as well.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, newer buildings can actually be higher risk
Wow.
because they are energy efficient. Starting in
Mm.
the 90s, we started building homes for energy efficiency. And so that holds the heat in the winter, and the windows are more tightly sealed, our doors are more tightly sealed, our roofs are hold the energy in. Also, I live in Texas, so we want to hold the cold in the summer. So the more energy efficient your home is, the more likely you are to hold radon in. So just because you have a newer home, you it does not mean that you're not at risk. Some of the newer homes, though, starting in the last couple of years, have started using what they call radon resistant new construction techniques.
Hmm.
It's not a policy or a code in all states or even counties, but it does help. Doesn't pre It helps prevent radon from entering a home if a home
Hmm.
has radon resistant construction. Like it may be some caulking or sealing around the foundation, a gas mat or vapor retarder, or a gas permeable membrane under the foundation that's put in. They might put a rough in throughout the home and a power outlet in the attic so that if a radon mitigation system needs to be installed later, it's much easier. So I think over time, with newer construction, we might see reducing levels with these radon resistant new construction techniques.
Well, Zan, you're bringing up a lot of things that make me think about some public policy advocacy and things that we might be able to get into code. We're going to take a quick commercial break, though, but when we come back, we have much more with Zan, so don't go away, folks. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Welcome back to Go Green Radio, everybody. So glad that you could join us. And if you just tuned in, let me catch you up. Our guest today is Zan Jones. She's the VP of Sales and Marketing for a company called Radonova. And we are talking about radon because January is Radon Awareness Month, but also because it's a very important human health, public health issue that I want to bring to the forefront because this isn't something that's been around since our grandparents were parents. It's not something that, is such a well-known and decades-long situation that there's multi-generational education and outreach going on. This is fairly new and not necessarily well understood by the general public. So I'm so glad that we have Zan with us today. So Zan, tell us about your company, Radonova. How long has the company been around, and what products and services do you guys provide?
Great. Yes, the Radonova actually got its start from sadly, from the Chernobyl accident, a disaster that
Mhm.
occurred in the 80s, where a nuclear reactor had a very serious accident. And the soil in the surrounding areas, including Sweden, where our global headquarters is located, were the soil was heavily affected, specifically with radioactive fallout and cesium in the soil.
Mhm.
And cesium is a toxin that gets into our food supply. It through the meat, the game meat, freshwater fish, mushrooms, things like that. And so initially, researchers were brought in from the university to find the cesium in the soil because it does cause lung can or cancer. Cesium is very easily absorbed into your body. And then the university students also started looking at radon because radon is also radioactive. And so that's how our company was originally started after the Chernobyl accident and now today, over 30 years later, our core product and our core jobs are in radon measurement. And that's
Mhm.
specifically what we do. We still do a little bit of cesium measurement, but primarily radon.
And you guys have monitors, correct? Different
Yes,
types of monitors. Tell us just a
that's
little bit about those products.
yes, there's two kinds of radon measurement. There's passive and active. And we have both types of measurement types. A passive is a radon detector that you put in your home. It's maybe 4x4 radon detector, and you put it in your home. You set it there for 2 to 4 days if it's a short-term test, or for 90 days to a year for a long-term test. You just set it in your
Mhm.
home in the proper location. At the end of the measurement period, you mail it into the lab, and the lab analyzes it and reports back your radon measurement in picocuries per liter. For our radon monitors, continuous radon monitors, those devices are electronic monitors, and they're about the
Mhm.
size of a Kleenex box. And those can be set out in a home or a school, and they measure radon in real time.
Oh.
So you can actually go on we have a product called the Spirit, and you can log into our dashboard, your computer, and see what the radon level is at any time based on what that monitor is reading. And it reads it every 10 minutes, so you can see hourly fluctuations as it goes up and down. You can also see how ventilation in buildings can change the radon level,
Hmm.
specifically in schools. When ventilation is on and off, radon levels go up and down. These continuous radon monitors are also used many times in home sale transactions. Many people require a radon test as part of their home inspection when they're going to buy a home or sell their home. And so this device can be put in a home and measure the radon before a home sale transaction.
Okay, I've got a business idea for you, and you get it for free. I was in Best Buy last weekend with my husband, and they have a whole section on smart homes. All kinds of
Yes,
monitors, all kinds of things. You've got lights, cameras, doorbell cameras, all kinds of things, thermostats. Why not indoor air quality monitors as a part of that? And radon could be part of it. So take
absolutely.
it, run with it. I think that if you're going to have a smart home, these are the kinds of things that need to be, part of having a smart home. So just my 2 cents
Absolutely.
there.
I agree.
A lot of people, a lot of companies can be opportunistic,
Yes,
and they see a problem and they're like, "Ooh, let's get in that biz," because there's a lot of
yes,
money to be made. But,
yes.
consumers sometimes get burned, by
True.
trusting that every company is, the same quality. How can consumers be sure that your products meet the highest quality standards?
Yes. Well, and to your point, so for radon measurement, the longer you can measure, the more accurate your result will be. So many times, it's completely within the standards to do a 2 to 4 day radon measurement in your home, and use that for a home sale transaction, or to use that to decide if you should mitigate your home. However, depending on the weather or depending on the temperature outside,
Yeah.
2 to 4 days might not. give you a true indication of what your real radon is in your home. It could be higher than that or it could be lower. And so you could mitigate and not need to mitigate, or you could need to mitigate and you don't. So the longer you can test, a long-term test can provide the most accurate result over the long term to know what your true radon is in your property, in your home, in your school. And working with a radon test manufacturer, it's important that they're accredited and certified. Radonova is one of the few companies that has an ISO 17025 certification. It's an international standards certification. We were actually the first radon lab to ever be certified in Europe in 1995. And in the United States, the certification is the National Radon Proficiency Program, NRPP. So when you're working with a radon test lab and manufacturer, knowing that they're NRPP approved and their devices and their products and their radon detectors, both passive and active, are NRP approved, can ensure that you're getting the quality standards that you need, because these are third party accrediting organizations. They don't have any vested interest in what your results are. They're really just setting the standards in place. So those are the most important things to look at when looking at a radon test manufacturer and a radon lab. And also, many times people will call a professional to come in and do the radon testing. And maybe and specifically maybe in school buildings or workplaces. But it's also important for those people to be certified in radon test measurement, and also for people that come in to mitigate homes to be certified as well.
That's such great information, and you probably saved a lot of our listeners some grief by going with products or services that are not as
Yes.
credible as Radonova. So I appreciate that. I want to talk about testing for radon in a variety of applications because, the kind of structure that you're testing, can make a difference. And you've talked a little bit about single family homes. Is there anything else that homeowners of a single family dwelling should know about what they should be testing and what kinds of products they should be using?
Yes, a single family home, a 2 to 4 day passive radon detector, or a 90-day radon detector that we talked about, those are very good for single family homes. The EPA recommends that you test your home every 2 years. It
Hmm.
also recommends that you test your home when you move to a new house, test the new home. And also, if you do any home renovation, if you renovate your kitchen, if you change your air conditioner, if you change your heater, anything that changes the ventilation with your home can change the way radon enters your home and circulates within your home. So that's important to test as well after a home renovation. That's the most important thing to remember about a single family home. And also that your home is not, just because your home is low doesn't mean your neighbor's home is low, and vice versa. So it's
Hmm.
important to test your own home.
That's good advice. And I know that later we'll talk about, what to do if you find radon. But I want to go to, the situation that many of our listeners are in, including my own kids, in multifamily dwellings. You know,
Absolutely.
you have a very different access in terms of, places in the building where you might put a monitor and that kind of stuff. If
Mhm.
talk to our listeners who live in multifamily dwellings, what should they be doing?
Yes, multifamily dwellings have very specific requirements for how you test for radon. We follow the ANSI ARST standards, ANSI,
Hmm.
and then AARST standards. Our industry
Hmm.
does, and that calls for testing 100% of the ground floor units in apartment buildings,
Okay.
and then 10% of the upper floor buildings. And a certified professional will know where to place the radon detectors within the apartment units, because we know that your apartment may be high and the person next door may be low. It can be different. So every apartment on the ground floor should be tested. And there's certain places that a detector shouldn't be placed. And goes the same for homes as well. Do not put them in kitchens, bathrooms, or laundry rooms anywhere near a
Mm,
source of water
okay.
or humidity. Um, don't put them on windowsills. Don't put them in areas like on top of a fireplace, on your mantle, or any place where direct sunlight can hit the detector, because that can affect the reading, make it artificially high, artificially low. But with
Okay.
apartments, closed building conditions are typically required. That means that you'll get a letter usually from your apartment building explaining what's going on in the property and with
Mm-hmm.
some instructions about, please don't leave your windows open, keep your sliding glass door closed because a closed building condition in your unit will need to be maintained to know your true radon. If you crack your window, then the radon will escape and it will appear that your unit is low,
Okay.
artificially low.
Let's pivot to schools and daycares where those
Yes,
vulnerable little bodies are.
yes,
What should they be doing?
yes. Schools, we know you spend 8 to 10 hours a day in a school, teachers and students. And a continuous radon monitor, which is an electronic monitor we talked about earlier, is something that works really well in schools because you can see the readings as the day progresses. The important thing
Mhm.
about testing for radon in schools is that we test during the school year when school's in session. Many times it's people think, oh, we should test in the summer or on the holiday so we don't bother anybody. But it really it doesn't bother people to test for radon because you simply are placing a detector or a monitor in one location and you're not touching it until you go and retrieve it to take it back to the lab. And so it's required that you test 100% of the ground level classrooms in a school building and
Mhm.
10% of the upper rooms as well. Also, any room on the ground floor that's occupied.
Mhm.
Another thing about schools is that they turn off the ventilation on the weekends and after
Mhm.
school and during the holidays. They
Mhm.
have demand control ventilation or time control ventilation. And what we know is that radon goes up during those times.
Mhm.
And so if you are testing during those times, it's going to look like the radon is very high when it
Mhm.
may actually be lower during the school day.
Yeah,
So
when that
that's
ventilation is on, right?
yes, and
Yeah.
yes, and so actually some schools have reduced their radon to a safer level by just turning the ventilation on 2 hours earlier on Monday and
Yeah.
getting that flowing through the building sooner. And but less than half the schools in the United States require testing in schools, and
Mhm.
so
Another
that's something
public
that's a
policy issue
it's
we
a
can
big
advocate for.
opportunity. You may have heard of
Absolutely.
you may have heard of the Gail Orcutt law that was passed in Iowa
Yep.
several years ago. She was a teacher in a school there in Iowa,
Mhm.
and she taught for many years and she had lung cancer. The school had high radon. She never smoked, and she actually got a bill passed that requires radon testing in schools and also mitigation if it's high. She actually passed away before the law was put in
Oh.
place, but the bill had been presented while she was still alive. But other states have similar requirements. It just depends on the state. But like you said, lots of policy opportunity,
Yep.
Jill.
We've got work to do after this show. You're putting us to work. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, we have much more with Zan Jones talking about radon. So don't go away, folks. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Welcome back to Go Green Radio. So glad that you could join us. We're talking about radon. It's a very important public health issue, something that all of us should be concerned about, something we can all take action on. And our guest is Zan Jones, VP of Sales and Marketing for Radonova. So we talked a little bit about schools, in the last segment, Zan, but we didn't get to daycares. Talk to us about what daycare facilities should be doing about radon.
Yes, daycares are very similar to schools in that children can spend 30 to 50 hours a week in a daycare. Same with the people that work there. There are daycare centers and also there's home daycare centers and there's professional daycare centers, or I should say center-based daycares.
Right.
But
Hmm.
all 50 states have requirements to get licensed to be a daycare provider. Some states, actually less than half, do require that you do radon testing to get your license to provide a daycare center. And some states actually require that you have it to get a license or to renew your license. And some other states require that if it is high, 4.0 picocuries per liter or higher, that it has to be mitigated. But there is also variation among states in that sometimes it's part of getting your license, and sometimes it's part of another organization within the state, like the health department. And so it's important if you are a daycare provider and to find out in your state what's required for radon testing and mitigation.
Well, find out what's required, and if nothing's required, do it anyway, because we're
Exactly.
trying to keep the kids safe. And as we heard in segment one with you, Zan, some of the zone maps may not be entirely accurate. So where children are involved, err on the side of caution and safety would be my 2 cents worth. So, I really appreciate that. Let's help our listeners put this information into action. Many of our listeners have kids in school or they work at a school. What can parents or school district employees do to find out what's being already being done in their local schools about radon? And if they find that there is not a program in place, how can Radonova, your company, help them get one started?
Yes. So the best way is for parents to get some action going with radon and testing in their schools is to ask. And first of all, to learn about it themselves. Test your own home. Order a test kit online on the Radon. You can go to our radonova.com and order a test kit for your home. They're very simple to do on your own, but learn about it and ask the principal, the facility manager, or the district if they've tested. And if they have, ask when the last test was performed because it's relatively inexpensive for a school district to perform radon testing.
Hmm.
And like we mentioned, we talked about, it's not disruptive at all. You simply
Hmm.
place test in a classroom and walk away until it's time to retrieve them and send them back. As a matter of fact, you're not supposed to move them at all.
Hmm.
That's tampering and that affects the test. So you just leave them alone. So that's, and then if high radon is found in the school, there could be, look for ways to fund getting the school mitigated, look for how the ventilation can be used to control the radon levels within the school. Radonova actually has instruments that can help with demand control ventilation, that if the radon reads high, it causes the ventilation system to kick on
Hmm.
and vice versa. And, but find out about getting the school mitigated, but also there could be grants within your state that could help
Hmm.
fund that kind of thing for the school district, depending on what the levels are.
Yeah, and believe it or not, because working with schools is my day job as CEO of the Go Green Initiative, and we have a lot of schools in this country with no mechanical ventilation.
Mm, mhm.
And so as climate changes and the need for mechanical ventilation becomes evident, many school districts will be putting this in, and it seems like a perfect time to couple that work with radon testing and radon monitoring so that we can tweak the system out to ensure that if we need some ventilation to help relieve the any radon that's in the building, that we're aware of that and we've set the machinery up to do that. Um,
Absolutely. And
Go
school
ahead.
educate students as well. Let's start with the
Hmm.
young generation. This
Yeah.
is a perfect science unit for high school chemistry. Radon
Hmm.
is a noble gas, number 86 on the periodic table, atomic mass of 122. It starts and discover the history of Marie Curie. Marie
Yeah.
Curie is the first female to have won a Nobel Prize and the first
Yep.
person to win two Nobel Prizes. And she discovered radium and polonium, two elements on the periodic table. Radium is actually a solid, and radon is the gas that comes from radium. And when she discovered radium, they would put it in food because it glows in the dark. They would put it in butter and toothpaste and paint.
Oh
And
my.
you might have, if you've ever seen the movie The Radium Girls, they would paint watch dials with radium paint so that the numbers would glow in the dark. And in between paint strokes, they would lick their paintbrush
Oh
and
no.
they all died from radium poisoning. As a matter of fact, Marie Curie is buried in a lead-lined coffin, and her manuscripts are still radioactive today.
Oh
But
my
she was very
gosh.
instrumental in this is history that would be interesting for any high school student, but also test the classroom. You can order
Yep.
a radon test online, make it a science unit, and start with the younger generation knowing about it. Until I
Hmm.
started this job 4 years ago with Radonova, I didn't even know what radon was.
Hmm.
So I think there's an opportunity with the younger generation to bring that into their awareness as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to pivot and talk to our listeners who are renters. We talked a little bit about multifamily dwellings and what could be done to test for radon then. But I read this on your website. It says radon disclosure in real estate transactions is common in many states. However, the same isn't true for rental homes. Only 4 U.S. states require landlords to disclose radon levels in their rental properties. And those 4 states are Colorado, Florida, Illinois, and Maine. Good job, guys. What advice do you have for renters outside of those states?
Yes, outside of those states, well, first of all, let me just address those states because I did
Hmm.
help lobby for the law in Colorado and also Illinois for renters. And what the law state is that if you're a renter and you test your property for radon and it's high, then the landlord is required to mitigate the property to bring it down to below 4.0 picocuries per liter, or you are allowed to break your lease with no penalty. In
Hmm.
Illinois, it specifically says that the landlord can also do their own test and to determine they don't have to take the renter's word for it, but they can provide their own test, but they still have to mitigate if it's high. But what I would recommend for renters who in other states is
Hmm.
that you test your own home. It's a very inexpensive test to buy online and see what the results are.
Hmm.
Talk to, if it's high, if it's 4.0 or higher, talk to your landlord because if they mitigate the property, it just adds value to the property anyway, because
Yep.
it's making it a safer property for future people that move into the unit or to the home that they're renting. And it also reduces their liability exposure because they're reducing the risk that their renter is going to potentially have radon-induced lung cancer.
Hmm. Yep. The big L,
Yeah,
liability.
yes,
The-
absolutely.
yep. What about radon in water? Is that something that we should be concerned with?
Yes, I get that question so much, and there have been links to radon in water causing stomach cancer. And and it comes out through water, mostly in the air. So, like when you turn on your shower, the aerosols from your shower,
Hmm.
or when you wash your hands, when you cook, when you do laundry, even flush the toilet, anything that
Mm.
rouses water in your house. That's why we don't test for radon in the kitchen and in the bathroom and laundry room because that's where water is. But that's where radon can come out and gets in the air. So it's still important to test your air, even though the radon may be getting released into your home from water. And a recent study by the University of Calgary actually found that if you have an underground well, if you're
Hmm.
on well water versus city water, your chances of radon in your home are significantly higher.
Wow.
City water has the pipes for city water coming into your house pretty shallow, and they have things in place to prevent radon, and also it's not as likely to come into your home. But if
Hmm.
you're on an underground well, this study showed that if you have a well, you have a higher chance of radon in your house. And the closer the well is to your home, the higher your radon is your home, it is in your home, which
Hmm.
then sort of ties the fact that the high radon is not necessarily from the water, but from the well hole and the
Yeah.
casing and the piping that's going into the ground because radon does come from decaying uranium in the soil. So it's
Hmm.
really because of the well hole, not necessarily from the water itself. But there are
Hmm.
ways to test radon in water, but I still recommend, and there are mitigation procedures to mitigate and remove the radon in water. I still
Hmm.
recommend that you would test your home air as well.
Well, and that takes me to my next question. If customers that use your monitoring equipment find that they have a radon problem, what are some of the steps they can take to mitigate, and where do they find out more information?
Right. So my recommendation is there are people that are certified to do radon mitigation. They are certified by NRPP, National Radon Proficiency Program, nrpp.info. And it's very simple to go to that website and put in your zip code, and it will provide a list of all the certified radon mitigation companies in your area. One thing that I see sometimes is that people that do other trades, maybe plumbers or other trades, will work at putting in a radon mitigation system because they think, oh, it's just a fan and some pipe. But I recommend, and Radonova recommends that you use a certified radon mitigator because they understand how radon moves within a home, how it
Mhm.
can be in different pockets in your home in the proper way and the proper clearances for installing the fan and pipes to make sure that it's safely vented out of your home
Mhm.
instead of back into your home. So
Right.
that's what I would recommend.
Well, and I know that you have, folks that we can find on your website. What's the upside for a radon professional to partner with Radonova?
Yes, as partnering with Radonova is knowing that you're working with a certified company. So we're certified in providing radon tests. Our lab is certified. Our reports are certified. We provide reports that can be, for a professional, we can tailor the reports for your business. We can have them with your logo on the report. We also
Mm.
have an online portal that where you can access all your information at all times and pull multiple reports and a dashboard. If you do a multifamily measurement, you can pull all the reports and all the measurements from all the different buildings in one property. And so partnering with us just lets you know that you're working with a company that's been around over 30 years. That's got your back and that is providing things that are going to help you comply, help you make sure you can be confident in the results you're providing your customers and reducing the chances of radon or a radon-induced lung cancer for your customers.
I love it. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we've got a lot more to talk about with Zan Jones. So don't go away, folks. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Back to Go Green Radio, everybody. So glad that you joined us today to talk about radon, making sure that we are aware of what it is and why it poses such a serious human health risk. It's something that we should all be monitoring for and making sure that our homes, our schools, our workplaces are safe. We're joined again by Zan Jones, the VP of Sales and Marketing for Radonova, a company that's been around for a long time and has a great story, great credibility, and I'm happy to have her on. Zan, in the day and age in which we live, and I won't go into all the particulars, but I think it's important for us to underscore that radon is in no way political. It's very apolitical. And it's an important and preventable public health issue. In fact, Governor Greg Abbott of this great state of Texas has officially proclaimed January 2026 as Radon Action Month in Texas, which is awesome. Talk to us about some of the ways that the state of Texas will be encouraging residents to take action on radon this month.
Thank you. Yes, this is the second year in a row that the governor of Texas has proclaimed January as Radon Action Month, and several governors around the country have also done the same. But I'm really excited about Texas because it just gives some credibility
Yep.
to what we're talking about in the public. And we are sharing stories this month during Radon Action Month. What tends to move people to action is hearing a story about someone with lung cancer that
Mm-hmm.
has radon. And we just talked to someone in North Texas, which is an area that most people say, oh, there's no radon in North Texas. Well, a retired Dallas ISD science teacher has stage
Oh.
4 lung cancer. And she tested her home for never smoked, very healthy lifestyle. She tested her and she taught science. She had never heard of the radon, the risk of lung cancer and radon, but she tested her
Mm-hmm.
home after doing some Google searching after she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and found that
Mm-hmm.
her home was between 10 and 11.6 picocuries per liter and
Mm-hmm.
the actionable limit is 4.
Right.
So she's had her home mitigated, but we've shared this story with the local media. We've just organized an Indoor Environments Association chapter in Texas and Oklahoma to help all the professionals in Texas that do radon measurement and radon mitigation, and also people that support those agencies, lung associations all talk about ways that we can improve awareness. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing that Radonova has done the last several years is we learned that coincidentally, January is also National Blood Donor Month,
Oh.
as well as being Radon Action Month. And so we partner at local blood drives during the month to provide radon tests for people that are donating blood with the
I love
idea that
that.
they're helping save a life and we're helping save a life. And just getting those conversations started with people who
Mhm.
care about their health and care about the health of others.
Well, I mean, I have to be honest, Zan. I mean, it's only been fairly recently that I became aware of what a critical issue radon is. And I have been working in protecting children's health from environmental toxins for over 20 years. And this just never made it to the top of my radar screen in the same way that other pollutants have. And I think, one of the things that we find so often is that if there's a big corporate polluter to blame and to fight, that can sometimes generate more attention than saying, well, it's naturally occurring in the dirt. Watch
Well, how do
out.
you regulate that? You can't
Yeah,
regulate something that occurs naturally.
exactly. And
Absolutely.
and yet the consequences of inaction couldn't be more serious. It's literally a matter of life and death. I
It
want to ask
truly
you
is.
a personal question, Zan,
Yes.
if I
Okay.
can. What's the best part of your job? Why are you so passionate about your work at Radonova?
Well, I think the best part is knowing that there could be someone in 10 years sitting in their living room with their family that never got lung cancer because of a test that we provided or an accurate reading that we provided, and they mitigated their home, or they lung cancer never entered their history, or that we wrote an article in our marketing efforts that gave someone an idea to test their home, or help them know what lung cancer, radon-induced lung cancer is, and to mitigate their home. But just helping know that what I'm doing on a daily basis is helping save lives and helping prevent lung cancer, because there is a stigma with lung cancer.
Yep.
Many people think that if you have lung cancer, you you brought it on yourself, you smoked.
Hmm.
And as we've talked about today, 21,000 people in the US, that's probably underestimated, get
Hmm.
radon-induced lung cancer every year, 1,500 people in Texas. And usually when lung cancer is diagnosed, it's at stage 4.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty far along. But knowing that I'm helping move that message forward and help remove the stigma from lung cancer, um, lung cancer actually causes more deaths than prostate, breast cancer, and colon cancer combined.
Wow.
And smoking actually causes those cancers as well, but they don't have
Yeah.
the stigma. And
Hmm.
so pushing this kind of conversation that like you giving me this time to talk about this is what keeps me uh, energized to keep pushing.
So many times I get emails and social media comments from uh, people who are young in their career, maybe college students or young adults who want a quote unquote green job. They want something in sustainability, something in public health or environmental sustainability in some way. And one of the things that I always tell them is you can take your passion for that into any profession. You could be an artist, you could be an engineer, you could be an architect, you could be an accountant, you could be a plumber, you could be an electrician. There's so many ways. And here you are in sales and marketing with this kind of passion for protecting public health from environmental pollutants and toxins. And I just think that your story underscores what I try to tell, young folks in their career. If you want that type of career, if you want that kind of focus, follow your passion, follow your strengths and your abilities, and take that with you. It applies to every industry at this point.
I agree with you, Jill. You can find it anywhere. Finding meaning in what you're doing is 90% of the thing of what we do in our life is just find passion that we're doing. And not and when you're in a sales and marketing job, sometimes you're just trying to sell stuff. You're just trying to
Yeah,
market stuff. But that's really not all it is. It's
right.
helping people.
That's right. Because it is an awareness month, for radon, what
Mhm,
can our listeners do to
mhm.
promote it in their own communities, in their own families? What can they do to be part of raising awareness?
Yes. Well, test your home. Test your home for radon. Order a test kit from the Radonova website. Tell your friends you're testing your home. Radon-induced lung cancer is very preventable.
And in the final moments that we have left in the show, what parting thoughts would you like to leave with our listeners?
I would just say test your home for radon. Tell a friend you tested your home for radon and know that radon-induced lung cancer is preventable. And with a simple test from Radonova, you can test your home and know what your risk level is.
Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
Zan. And I just want to tell all of our listeners, get out on Radonova's website, check it out. It's an easy Google search, Radonova, and you can find their products and their services and their certified professionals. We're going to be here same time, same place next week with more Go Green Radio. Until then, have a wonderful week and do something in your life to go green.